the Madman! Welcome to the top custom cards of the week. We start off with Conjurer All-In, a mage legendary, 8 mana 5/5, battlecry, transform spells in your hand into elementals that cast them with stats equal to their cost. Design 5 stars, balance 4 stars. Explaining how the card works, so the Flame Strike that's in your hand gets transformed into a 7/7 elemental with battlecry, cast Flame Strike. I'm scared of this card. There's precedent for this type of card. King Faurus, a 10 mana 5/5, just summoned onto your board random minions equal to the mana cost of the spells. So King Faurus is the fast version of All-In, and in general, playing cards for their stats fast is better than slow. But there's a little bit of scariness in All-In because board clears are usually comeback cards. You spend your turn clearing the board and you're on an equal playing field. However, if you're playing a 7 mana 7/7 which flame strikes the board, like the opponent's board is possibly clear and you have a 7/7, or if you blizzard with the elemental, you have a 6/6 and their board is frozen, they can't do anything. They can't do anything to your 6/6. I think the card wording is a little bit wordy. I feel like it's got really good flavor. You're infusing your spells into elementals. So how about it just says, Battlecry, infuse your spells into elementals. The art of Hearthstone templating is to keep it short and sweet while containing the flavor and making it pretty apparent what the card does. While infusing your spells into elementals probably doesn't tell you entirely what they do, after one play of it or seeing it work would pretty much explain it pretty well. Kind of like Zephyrus. So I'm gonna say scary card, and I would suggest raising the card to 9 mana for my balance fix, and I'm not sure if that's it. I'm not sure if this is even balanced at 10 mana. The reason why I put it at 9 is because I do like the idea of curving Conjurer All-In into Puzzle Box of Yogg-Saron, because it's kind of like Yogg-Saron Reborn. Then you actually get a 10 mana 10/10, which casts Puzzle Box of Yogg-Saron, and since it's casting Puzzle Box of Yogg-Saron, it's not like it'll stop if your 10/10 elemental is removed from the board. I think such a card could push Mage into a Big Spell Mage variation, which is kind of cool, because Big Spell Mage is a cool idea for a deck, and mages are well known for spells. Drunk Patron, warrior 3 mana 3/3, has a 50% chance to attack the wrong enemy. If it does, summon a Drunk Patron. Design 2 stars, balance 4 stars. I have a major problem with the design of the card, and it's the Vicious Fledgling effect. It's a big random effect that goes off really early. If Vicious Fledgling successfully hits your opponent's face and gets Wind Fury, you get such a big advantage. If Drunk Patron successfully attacks the wrong enemy, which is a pure 50-50 random chance, then you get a whole additional 3/3 that early. A 0 mana 3/3 is really big on turn 4, and that's just way too random of an effect, way too early, and even worse, because it's a copy of Drunk Patron, or rather, because it's a Drunk Patron, the next turn you're potentially getting 2 flips to summon 2 additional Drunk Patrons, and it gets out of control. It's a card that's fundamentally bad at 3 mana because the high rolling nature and the snowballing nature, it is too scary to have that so early. And yet the balance is a 4 because it's not that imbalanced. You can deal with it, and it's technically fair, it's just horribly unfun and so random. So how could you fix this card? You could raise the mana cost, but then that would make the card even weaker. You could raise the stats, but patrons are supposed to be 3/3s, right? Also, slight problem with the card name. Drunk is not kosher for a name in the Hearthstone world, so perhaps Tipsy Patron. Anyways, is there a solution to this kind of snowball card as well as patrons being 3/3? Maybe there isn't. And I don't even know why it's a warrior card. It doesn't have to be. Could probably be neutral. And someone got a good comment. What about the Drinking Buddy card from last time? You're right. The Drinking Buddy, I should have mentioned the name on that one as well. Perhaps the right name was Tavern Buddy. Drawing Blood. 1 mana warlock spell. Deal 4 damage to a hero. That player draws 2 cards. Yikes. Design 2 stars. Balance 1 star. It's very Pot of Greedish. For 1 mana, I draw 2 cards. And yeah, it deals 4 damage, and that's a drawback, but maybe it's not a drawback in the self-damage zoo. You play the Drawing Blood, and then you play your Buster, and you get +4 attack on it. So the card is too powerful, even if you are just drawing the card. But what makes it really over the top is the fact that it does damage to a hero, and then it draws cards for that hero. One of the class identities of Warlock is that it's supposed to be bad at face spells. And indeed, pretty much the only cards that it has that can target face without being AoE is Soulfire. It would be very dangerous to give Warlock another bit of burst damage. Players should feel safe playing against Warlock and being at 7 health for the Leroy, or 5 health for Soulfire. But when you add Drawing Blood to that equation, you can suddenly deal 4+4+4, or 6+4+4, or 6+4+4+4, and that's just way too much burst damage. So big faux pas in giving Warlocks direct face damage. And I do think that a way to fix this card is to put it at 2 mana, perhaps deal 3 damage to you, draw 2 cards to get a 1 mana discount for 3 damage, or maybe deal 2 damage to you. Dark Magic Trees. Druid 3 mana spell. Choose one. This spell gain Twin Spell, semicolon, or Echo. Summon a 3/3 Dark Treant. Design 1 star, balance 5 stars. This is an example of a card that probably seems really clever and seems like a good mix of keywords, but in practice, it's not interesting enough to go onto a card. The idea of choosing either Twin Spell or Echo, which are pretty closely related, you really only ever choose Echo if you're playing this card exactly 3 times on a turn. Otherwise, you choose Twin Spell. Is that an interesting enough card to have a choose one choice on? Probably not. And furthermore, the big problem with this card is its way that it interacts with the quest. The wording is confusing even by default when you're not considering the quest, and it's just not worth the confusion. It's one of those cards where the subtlety isn't worth the extra complexity, and it is just confusing. Void's Influence. Warlock 2 mana spell. Give a minion +1/+3 and taunt. When it dies, summon a Voidwalker. Design 3 stars, balance 2 stars. Fine design, a little bit boring. It's Spiked Ridge Steed, except instead of 6 mana, it's 2 mana, and instead of +2/+6, which summons a 2/6 with taunt, it gives +1/+3 and summons a 1/3 with taunt. But it costs 2 mana! Oh my god, the horror. Spiked Ridge Steed was so good at 6 mana. Thirded the cost for half the benefit. That's pretty insane. This is like a 2 mana 2/6. It's way out of balance. Even at 3 mana, it's actually pretty solid. And that is my suggested nerf for this card. Simply 3 mana. Warlocks aren't really known for having strong buffs. You could have this be give a demon +1/+3 and taunt. I think it would still have to cost 3 mana. Like, Warlock doesn't really buff things, they buff demons in particular. So, I think give a demon +1/+3 and taunt when it dies summon a Voidwalker is pretty flavorful, and potentially worth 3 mana. Groundskeeper Haggard, 7 mana 6/7 legendary. Battlecry, discover a beast, a murloc, and a dragon. Design 4 stars, balance 4 stars. One thing I'm going to add is that the author intended for this card to be able to discover all class minions as well as neutral minions. In that case, I did dock a point off of design because it should say discover a beast, a murloc, and a dragon from any class. But the card doesn't have to be able to discover from any class. It could just follow the rules as neutrals. To some extent, it's bad that Discover can hit something from another class, because that's clearly an exception, but if you were to put it on a card, then it would have to be like a really clear case on why it's an exception. And I think, yes, this is a legendary, and that's a decent reason for it to be an exception, but you weaken the keyword of Discover because then people might play Discover and expect to get other class cards. It's important to be consistent, in other words. So I feel like it shouldn't have the from any class clause. This card can be compared with the Curator, which drew you a Beast, a Murloc, and a Dragon from your deck. This card discovers one, which is better because you don't have to weaken your deck with a random Beast, a Murloc, and a Dragon. You just pull them out. Admittedly, you don't get as good of choices as a result, but Discover, when you're choosing from 3, that's often as good as drawing a card. So this is kind of like drawing 2.5 cards, because one could argue that the Murloc isn't really that good, and they're big and small beasts. Sometimes you don't get the beast you want. The dragon, you almost always get a good one. So I think in order to be more in tune with a minion that draws 3 cards, should probably cost 7 mana 5/5. Apex Predator, a druid minion, 4 mana 3/2. Battlecry Adapt. If you're holding a minion with 5 or more attack, gain all 3 options. Design 5 stars, balance 5 stars. Are you surprised that I rated a Adapt minion 5 stars on design? Well, check this out. The author actually has the Ungoro expansion logo on it. I'm evaluating the card as if it showed up in the proper expansion. In fact, this card takes both of the elements of Ungoro Druid, 5 or more attack, as well as being good adapters, and it tosses it succinctly into a nice card. If the adapt is thought to be on average worth +1/+1, then if you get 3 adaptations, it's something like a 4 mana 6/5 if you're holding a minion of 5 or more attack. A lot of variety. I think even with the highest of rolls, it's dealable with. Oh, my foot fell asleep. Ah! Ow, ow. Dragon's Rage. 5 mana mage spell. Summon a 5/5 dragon for every Dragon's Rage you played this game. Design 4 stars, balance 5 stars. The intent of this card is summon a 5/5 dragon, comma, then summon an extra for every Dragon's Rage you played this game. Right now, the card does nothing when you play it, which is obviously really bad, but the intent is to get a 5/5 the first time, and a 10/10 the second time. So, gotta make sure to print this card when there aren't many card generation cards that can get you more Dragon's Rage or give you more casts of Dragon's Rage. Right now, that's possible with Tortolan Primalist and Primordial Glyph and cards like that, but perhaps what's most scary is if you play Vargoth and then you play Dragon's Rage, you're going to get 15/15 worth of stats along with another Vargoth. And that's really scary, and that's the reason I took a point off of design. Because I think the card is balanced, but it has to be printed at the right time. So the problem with the design here is that the author did not state that this should be printed after Archmage Vargoth rotates into Wild, which is pretty much the only restriction that I want to give this card, on top of for the 2 years, or the 1.5 years that Dragon's Rage is in the set, you can't print very many ways to get more Dragon's Rage. We have Azaris Blood Vial, a Warlock legendary spell. For 1 mana with Echo, restore 3 health, remove the top card of your deck. Love it! Design 5 stars, balance 5 stars. This card invokes the idea of Azari, which is a huge demon which loves eating your deck, and this card loves eating your deck as well, and it restores health. And it's very Warlock themed to sacrifice something in order to get another thing. And here you're sacrificing cards from your deck in order to gain health. You gain the health pretty efficiently, and it scales pretty wildly. Like, you can heal yourself, you can heal your minions. I might be a little bit scared that this is a little bit out of character for Warlock to be able to heal their minions, so perhaps you gain 3 health is more appropriate. In fact, I didn't catch that the first time I looked at the card, so I'm docking a star for design. Let's make it 4 stars, because restoring health to the Warlock's minions is not really a thing. They're not a healer. They just heal themselves. The card fights against its own archetype. Control Warlock wants to go for long games, so I think it's cool that you have to make a real sacrifice to do it. Combo decks with Mecha'thun might be able to make use of this. Very cool card for that. Maybe self-damage Zoo. And now, let's go for the trump card of the week. Pathfinder. 4 mana 2/4, Battlecry, draw a card that you can play. Design 5 stars, balance 5 stars. There's just one asterisk to the card, which is, first of all, I'm going to have to explain how the card works. It's not obvious. Say you're at 6 mana. When you play Pathfinder, you have 2 mana left, so the card will dig up a 2 mana card from your deck and give it to you, if you have any. If not, it'll get you the 1 mana card. If you play this card at 10 mana, you're going to draw a 6 mana card. Unless you don't have any, then you'll get a 5 mana card. Unless you don't have any, then you'll get a 4 mana card. If you play this Pathfinder at 4 mana, then you're going to get nothing unless you put Wisp in your deck, then you'll get the Wisp. It's tough to put all that into what the card can do in its text box. So my idea is draw the highest base cost card that could be played this turn. I don't know whether or not you would need to add the word base, but the intent is so that you can't draw Shirvala, because technically you can play Shirvala, but that's not really the intent of the card. The intent of the card is to tutor for the exact mana cost of card that you want. And I also feel like it shouldn't be draw the card that's equal to your remaining mana crystals, because then you have to keep track of your deck, really necessitating taking notes or remembering stuff or having a deck tracker, which is bad design. But if it draws you a card that you can play, and the intent is it draws you the highest card, then that's pretty good. I think it's a really creative tutor type idea, where you yourself can cleverly weave the mana such that you find the card you want. Distinctly better and worse than Witchwood Piper in that you can play Witchwood Piper on turn 4 and it gets you a card. Pathfinder, it's a dead card until whatever turn you want to exactly play it for. Really cool design, gets the mind thinking a bit. So I hope you enjoyed walking this path with me for this week's custom Hearthstone cards.